Hey friends, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to the show. Fair warning, I am in the middle of a depressive apocalypse right now, so this is not going to be happy-go-lucky live stream, but they aren't all like that. And hopefully you're cool with that. If you're not cool with that, I totally understand. Lots of other stuff here on YouTube. I'll see you on Sunday. Tonight we're going to solder up the rcINpower major Wasp major, or Wasp major, I guess I've heard them pronounced. 22.6 millimeters wide, 6.5 millimeters tall, 1860 kV, to a glide build here that will hopefully not catch on fire during the first battery that I fly on it. I finished up a 5-inch build yesterday. I put a whole bunch of time in, and it caught on fire on the first battery and burned to the ground, and that on top of some shit that happened on Wednesday night and some other nonsense just pushed me over the edge. And once you get pushed over the edge with depression, it's takes a couple of days to come back, unfortunately. That's life for those of us that live with mental illness sometimes. So fine. It has nothing to do with you guys. I appreciate your guys' support. If you choose to hang, it's very cool of you, but like I said, I don't expect anyone to. These are the Wasp majors. They look really nice. There's really no point in like visually reviewing a motor, I guess. They're all really, really good quality nowadays. I am curious if the bells are Loctited so hard that you can't get the screws out. They are. So don't bolt these directly up to a rig. If you're out in the field and you bend a bell and you need to pull the bell off, you're not going to be able to get the screws out. My recommendation is going to be, and I'll show you this in a while, is to, well, one of the only ways to get these screws out when they're super Loctited like this is to heat them up. So I'm going to show you later. You just put the tip of the soldering iron on the bottom of the screw here as if you would with your driver. Get the screw really hot, and then you can get it out of there, and then you just run it in and out of the bell a couple of times to get the excess Loctite out. Or you can kind of wipe the screw off a little bit to remove some of the extra Loctite from it. The motors look really good, which means nothing. But yeah, one of the things that they have shortened, so on most new motors the motor shafts are a little bit shorter because most new current generation propellers have a slightly shorter hub, and so it looks like that's really smart. Okay, all right, so what has happened in the past is that they shorten the motor shaft and then they just give you these low profile M5 nuts. These low profile M5 nuts suck. They're just not as good as the regular ones that we're used to. On the motors, they have these low profile ones, but then in the little baggies with the screws, it looks like they have a regular height M5 nut, which is great. I have a million of these, so it's fine. But so yeah, that's great because if you're running a newer propeller with the skinnier hub, you can run the taller M5 nut, which is really preferred. But then if you're going to run an old school propeller with a thicker hub, you're going to need to use the low profile M5 nut, which again is kind of fine. Like, there's your little push to move to a newer propeller, because most of the current gen thinner hub propellers do perform better. So that's really smart of rcINpower to do that. The little baggie, of course, comes with all the extra screws you would expect, an extra little rubber O-ring and washer for the inside of the motor once you do get the bell off. Yeah. Like I said, the motor looks good. We'll weigh it in a little bit here, compare it to the F40 Pro 4. Not really going to fly them. I mean, I'll spin them up in beta flight to get the motor directions correct, but that's about it. The footage the footage that you were watching at the beginning of the stream was actually from this little thing that I showed you guys the other night that I finished up. This is a NBD Mosquito 2.5-inch propeller frame, and then it's a NBD BLV4 AIO. That's why the OSD is coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And then I've got the NBD 1102 19,000 20,000 19,000 19,000 kV motors on it. And then these are GemFan 65 millimeter S propellers, 2.5 inch. Is that what 65 millimeters, 2.5 inch? It is, right? Yeah, 2.5 inch. Nice lightweight bi-blade. You know, kind of toothpick specific, basically, but not really, but kind of. This is NBD's new canopy that you can use screw mount nano-sized cameras in, and then this is a Caddx Ant BT 2.0, and I was running 450 mAh batteries, the Weebleed ones that we run in the 75 millimeter whoops. So yeah, it actually, once I cranked the PIDs up, it actually flew pretty good. I let the intro run long so that you could see sort of the progression of PID tuning that was happening, and to kind of show you how simple it is, right? Like, fly it. If it's not absolutely locked in, do exactly what you saw me do, and I gave you the slightly more complicated version of tuning, where we moved the two sliders instead of just one, and then I also pushed the Dmax up a little bit, because I like to have the Dmax up at like 1.2 or sometimes even 1.4, 1.5. Dmax will push the D gain even higher than how you have it set with the regular D gain, only when it needs it. So like when it goes into prop wash, basically when it comes off of set point, when it's not doing what you're telling it to do on the sticks, it will start raising the D gain up temporarily. D gain causes motor heat, so it allows you to boost the D gain only when you need it, and then bring it back down for when you don't need it and you're cruising around, to keep the motors cool most of the time, and then, you know, heat them up in scenarios where you need it. You need the extra D gain. So yeah, I was pretty surprised at how well it flies. It's not very, it's not super reactive, and it's not super snappy. Even after pushing the D gain, you could kind of, so you guys saw me push the D gain slider all the way up to 2.0. If you ever do that and the rig is not like razor, well, and chase it with the P&I slider up to like, I think 1.8 or so, 1.7, 1.8. If you've ever pushed if you ever have to push the PID gains that high, that's a surefire sign that you've got basically a motor that's too small. If the motor was big enough for the weight and the amount of drag that the propeller is putting on it, you wouldn't have to boost the PIDs that far. The fact that I was able to boost the PIDs that far without the damn thing flying away was pretty impressive. That shows you how stiff this frame is, basically. This frame is probably overly stiff, to be honest. They could probably make this a 0.5 millimeter thinner, and it would still be kind of okay, and it would bring the weight of the rig down. But it is a unibody frame, and so if you break an arm, it's a complete pain in the ass, right? You have to rip the entire thing apart. So if it's going to be a unibody, I would rather it be a little bit too heavy so that hopefully it never breaks. So yeah, that's what was going on there. And then, you know, also the ability to push it that high means that you've got good soft mounting. You don't have anything pushing against the AIO, because, yeah, I mean, there's vibrations no matter what. So there were a couple of things that were pretty impressive. Yeah, these are, again, the Newbie Drone 1102 19,000s. I think they're maybe being held back by their KV. I kind of wish they were 20,000 or 22,000 even. Yeah, these are not the motors that I'm going to leave on here, I don't think. I think this is going to be the home for the rcINpower 1003 22,000 kV motors. I just need to desolder the leads from them because they've got the regular leads, and I'll have to solder on the Newbie Drone leads. That's not something that's going to happen within the next like week and a half or so. That's going to be an after Rampage project. But yeah, I'm glad that I have it up in the air. We can start to figure out on a 2.5-inch 1S toothpick what's the right motor. These weren't too bad though. I mean, it was once the PID gains were up higher, it was flying around pretty decent. we can take a look at that same day. I also flew both of the 75 millimeter Jungle Jim Basher rigs. One of them on both of them on 802 iGAO motors. One of them on regular 27,000 kV iGAO motors, and the other one on the hybrid motors that I built with the 30,000 kV stator bases. So that was kind of interesting to fly those two. Did we already look at this footage? I hope we didn't already look. Did we already do this? I'm getting like weird deja vu. Please let me know in the chat if we've already done this. My brain doesn't work all that well when I'm in this state. So, for the love of God, tag me in the chat and let me know if we've already looked at the what. So, we have looked at footage from these two, but it was when one of them was on BL Heli S. Which is not fair. The 30,000 kV one was on BL Heli S. And then so I fixed that and I re-flew them on the same day that I flew this guy. I think the deja vu is from the original flying we did. But let me know. Let me know in the chat if you guys don't mind. Speaking of the chat, Hockey Rounds was first, Frank Nicholas was next, Hung Out FPV, Troy Prulog, Slow Cal, Hockey Rounds, Northern Tier, Kilo Zebra, Rockcrawler, Gusto, Metal Dirtskin, Stars Stripes, Jacket, County FPV, Mick Mucus, Captain Calgary, Timmons, Rockcrawler, Indostraya, Safe Zone FPV, Hockey Rounds again, Gusto, County again, Hendrix Freakazoid Demo, Walter 661, Freelojo, Metal Dirtskin, Nathan Otis, Armin Drone, Schubert Tech, Playmate, Test, Pequeño Frijole, Beef FPV, PDFPV. What's up, friends? So yeah, we got that going for us, which is nice. What movie is that from? Anybody know? Beef FPV says I had the same OSD flickering issue. BLV4 reached out to Newbie Drone and they instructed me to move the items at the top of the screen to the bottom and it stopped. OSD cutting in and out. That's super weird. I'm going to do that right now because otherwise I will not remember to do that. We're not going to fly this to test it, but I'm just going to, it'll take 3 seconds to do it real quick. So, that is wild. And you said it worked, Beef. Strange. The OSD flickering thing is super annoying. It's one of the reasons why I don't fly the Hummingbird hardly at all. I also don't fly it hardly at all because it's breaking. I've not had very good luck with them durability wise. But that's neither here nor there. What just happened to this? Did this just... Why is that so bendy? What? What's going on here? I think one of these antennas might have just broken. Oh, no. The shrink wrap just fell off the back of the antenna. That's super annoying. Whatever. So if I go into OSD, I'm just going to turn stuff off. I'm just going to turn the craft name off. And then, yeah, I don't really need to know what the pitch is. Turn the pitch angle off. I could just pull them down to the bottom, but whatever, it's fine. Cool, dude. Thank you for mentioning that. That has been driving me mad. Cool. Hold on. Let me just try to get this shrink wrap back over the thing. On these little tiny antennas, I always try to put a little piece of shrink wrap in between where the antenna where the active element of the antenna meets the shielded black cable part. I've had a couple antennas that after they tend to fold and like bend there, and after they sit there and bend a bunch of times, they can kind of break the active element. So if you put a little piece of shrink wrap there, it makes it a lot stronger. So yeah, but in this case, the shrink wrap like popped up and off. It's kind of weird. I need to figure out a better way to run the shrink wrap on this little guy though. It's not the shrink wrap, the ELRS antennas. They're just poking out top, waiting to, just asking to get dropped down into the propellers and chopped to bits. But on tiny whoops, not tiny whoops. On toothpicks, like it's kind of tough. There's not a lot of spots for them for the antennas to stick up and out. But the goober canopy is pretty good. The goober canopy has a bunch of these holes up on top that you can usually use. Not always, but sometimes. And so, yeah, I take a little bit of shrink wrap and just run it down here. And I can't even grab this. They're kind of short. Yeah, and just put it right over the junction. And then, like, when you pull on this, it's gonna move the entire wire. Otherwise, it'll bend right at the joint between the two. And you don't want that. That'll eventually break. So yeah, let's hit this. See if we can get it to shrink up a little bit more so it doesn't fall off again. And there we go. All right, so hopefully that will not fall off. And so here's what I'm talking about on the. And actually, I'm gonna run it out the. I'm gonna run them out the very top ones. So let's use these top holes here, which will run the antennas absolutely straight up, just to get them as far away from the propellers as we possibly can. So put it through there, and then that shrink wrap is not going to want to go through there, but that's okay. So yeah, we'll run that up there like that, and then this other one we'll redo to run it up on top as well. See how that works, because I was already noticing running them out the back holes that they were getting really close to the propellers. So yeah, let's run them out top like this and see if that's any better. There we go. Cool. Oh man, this motor must have taken a hit. It's starting to sound jank already. One of the with toothpicks, man, I've had a really tough time with durability over the years. It's one of the reasons I stopped flying them. I just got sick of eating motors. But yeah. In the chat, if you want to talk directly to me, all you got to do is type CiottiFPV. And then CiottiFPV.com has a million ways that you can support me. Feel free. Rockcrawler says, did anybody notice that Bardwell is streaming in an hour? Kind of weird that he'd overlap. I did not notice that. I wonder what he's up to. Friday night at 8 Eastern? He must be doing a special thing. Maybe he's like doing gaming or something like that, I guess. Demo FPV says, what's up, Gangly Gang? Star Stripes Jacket says, so are you selling the HDZero goggles and buying the new HDZero monitor that can do analog and has HDMI out? I hadn't even heard of that. HDZero monitor that can do analog and has HDMI out. Originally, I was thinking about selling the HDZero goggles back when I thought that they weren't outputting proper 60 frames a second. But when I realized what a jackass I was, I kind of changed my mind. So yeah, I don't really have any plans on selling them Although if there's a monitor, they are still heavy and gigantic and sort of uncomfortable. If there's a monitor that does analog and has HDMI out, I can just set that up and then have that push to the TVs, and I can also have that handle the DVR. HDZero's DVR setup is fantastic. It automatically starts recording and it automatically stops recording, and it doesn't screw it up like most of the other ones that I've used do. And then that would allow me to run Fat Sharks. So that's kind of interesting. HDZero monitor. That would be kind of cool. Doesn't look like there's any. Oh, here we go. Wow, that's really cheap. Holy Christ. HDMI output. Look at that. Well, shit. Once somebody confirms that it actually does that stuff, I very well might. Wow. That's really, really cool. It looks like it has analog built in. I wonder how good the receiver is. Although it doesn't, the current HDZero goggles don't seem to jive all that well with the rapid fire. So it doesn't even have to be that good. It just has to be like kind of okay. Super interesting. Thank you for calling this out. I had not seen this. Although I don't see anything about DVR. I swear to God, if this thing doesn't have a DVR built in, I'm going to smash everything in sight. Built-in DVR. Okay, good. Shit. Yeah, I think this will do everything I want it to. I literally bought these HDZero goggles just for the HDMI out. So yeah, they don't really do me any good as goggles, to be honest, and especially with the fact that they don't seem to work right. It's not that they don't work right. They just don't work as good with a rapid fire module as Fat Shark goggles do, which is very confusing. I have absolutely no idea why that's the case, but that was the experience that Patrick and I had at his place over and over and over again last weekend or 2 weekends ago, whenever it was. So yeah, this might be exactly what I want and or need. I'm going to leave this tab open. Good call. Thank you for mentioning that, Stars and Stripes. Hockey Round says, Bummer Dude, I hope you flew out of it soon. Just had about myself. Thank you, brother. Timon says, we're all human. Another day cometh. Indeed it does. Freelo Joe putting the Patreon link in the chat. Thank you, man. SlowCal says, while flying my 75mm with iGao 802s, motor number 1 is falling out of the sky while throttle blipping hard with some yaw after a split S. Is that the issue you were seeing? You know, I never do. I know we talked about it the other night. I never really, I haven't had a chance to dive in and figure it out. But yeah, motor number 1 is right rear. So if you're yawing, if you are props in and you are yawing left and rolling left, that is going to ask a lot of motor number 1. So if that's when it's happening, it could be similar to what I've got going on. Let's dive into the flight footage, I guess, and I'll show you guys what we're sort of talking about. We're kind of playing. I almost said indoor baseball. It's not it at all. I forget the saying. So this, which, hold on, I hopefully gave myself a hand signal as to which build this is. There we go. 27,000 kV. Okay, so this is the 27,000 kV 0802 rig. So, see that? I didn't do that on the sticks. I didn't do that on the sticks either. Right? So, during hard, at the moment, it's right rolls. Let's keep looking. That looked like it was uncommanded there as well. Yeah, so this is yeah, so there you go. So, all right, let's take a look at that. So that was a yaw left, a hard yaw left, and it looked like it was. Let's slow it down a little bit. Playback. It's open apple bracket left. All right, so if we go back a little bit, and then we're going to slow it down to quarter speed. Oh, come on. Here we go. So we're going to yaw left. It's important if it happens during or at the end of the move. It looks like it's happening during. Right, yaw, come on. Yaw left. And yeah, so it's happening during the move. So, one more time. Yawing left, and then it drops out to the right. So both of these rigs are set up props in, and this is one of the potential problems with props in, is that it just makes it's just sort of harder. So yaw left, right? What that means with props in is that, so this guy's spinning this direction. So it's spinning, and it's gonna spin, spin, spin. If it increases, hold on, so it's spinning. If it increase, okay. So the right rear is increasing in RPM in order to turn the rig to the left, because it's going around and it's gonna push, right? It spins this, when it's props in, it spins this direction, and so when it spins faster, it's gonna push this rig. And also the left front motor. The left front motor does the same thing. These other two, motors 2 and 3 brake. They're spinning, and then they stop, and that, so they're spinning, and then they stop. Yep, that's yaw left. So they stop, and that forces this thing to rotate like that. So in this move, these, and so the braking is fine. The braking never causes issues. It's putting a bunch of power to motors that can show issues with either the ESC or the motors themselves. So these two motors are cranking up, and then we can see it drop the right side. So that completely isolates this motor here and this ESC channel here. So the first thing that I should do for this troubleshoot is take this motor and swap them, and then do the exact same thing. And if when I do that, it drops the left front, we know that the left front motor is bad, because that's the motor that was back here and it was dropping the right side, and then we moved it up there and it's dropping the left side. It's not the only time that it was doing it, though. We can actually go back to those rolls really early on and like kind of isolate. Yeah, see, now this is where it gets kind of interesting. So we're going to slow it down again. All right, so this is going to be a left roll, or a right roll, and in the middle of it, it drops. I think I did another one here. Okay, so here we go. Do it again, past me. Right roll, and you can see there, it just shits its pants. which is a little weird. All right, so on a left roll, it fires these two motors up, which it seems to do fine. It starts rolling over fine. And then towards the end of it, I think what's happening is I'm pulling the stick back to center, and it's firing this motor up to slow it down, right? To start it, these two guys come on and shoot hard, and then to stop it, when you return back to 0, it fires these two up to slow it down. And so it looks like when it does that, that's when the problems start. Let's take a look again. Left motors, right motor, and it seems to pitch back and look up, which would make sense if it's motor number 1. Do it again. Left motors fire, right motor fires. Maybe. If I had stick overlay, it would be better, but the stick overlay is so slow in the OSD that it's kind of pointless anyway. Now we're going to do a left roll, and it's completely fine, which is super weird. And I think we do another left roll here. And there it is again on the right roll. Nope. Wait, yeah. Whatever. Interesting. Oh, that was weird. What did it do there? So front flip, or back flip, whatever. No, back flip. So that's something on the left side. That's weird. Wait, nope, not necessarily. What was that? That was a back flip? Yeah, okay. So that was the back left motor, though. Back flip, the front motors fire up to get it started, and then the back motors fire up to get it stopped. And then it basically did that, which means that motor number 3... Weird. Okay, let's go back one more time. Let's think about motor number 3. So, come on. Yeah. I know. Wait. All right, motor number 3 is left rear. Now, ready? We are going to go left side motors fire up. Oh, it might be motor number 2. Because it might have happened in the middle of the move. Ready? Now, both left side motors fire up. They keep pushing to keep it rotating around. Okay. So it might actually be motor number 3 that we're having issues with. Because it's starting to look like it's not at the end of the move. It's in the middle of the it's in the middle of the flip and or roll. There was another one where it happened. I think it already happened. Okay, let's see here. Come on. Left side motors fire, and they keep... Yeah, okay. No, I think it's left rear. I think it's motor number 3. I believe it's happening. So my best guess is that during the rotation, these two motors fire up hard to get it started, and then they keep pushing. And my guess is going to be that this motor is overheating or something's going on. But after it continues to push, it's then letting go. Although that starts to make me kind of think it's the ESC. The motor, I doubt that the motor getting hot is going to drop all the way out like that. My guess is going to be that it's an ESC FET. And so that's happening on this rig here, which is the one, unfortunately, with the X12 AIO. So yeah, it's starting to look like maybe it's a motor back here. So I mean, if we're having trouble figuring out, it's definitely one of the motors in the back because it keeps looking up, right? So the right way to troubleshoot this would be to take both rear motors and put them on the front, and then the front motors on the back, and redo this and see if it starts nosing down instead of nosing up. That's going to confirm that, again, it's either the motors or the ESC channel. But instead of doing that troubleshoot, what I'm actually going to do is put it to props out. Props out, it specifically, the one main moment that it makes a big difference is when you're pitching and rolling. When you're yawing and rolling. When you're with props in, so we talked about how this motor and this motor are what make it yaw to the left, right? And so if we roll to the left, it's also this motor. So if you're cornering and you're pushing a bunch of yaw and left roll, this motor has to do both things. It has to both fire up to create the yaw rotation, and it also has to fire up to create the roll. And back in the early days of Tiny Whoops, we realized that after these things fall, when you would do that movement, when you would jam both sticks to spin it around real quick, it would drop the right rear or the left rear, depending on which direction you're going. And what we realized is that going props out helps, because going to props out reverses the rotation. And so in that left-handed left yaw, left roll maneuver, it's actually going to spin this motor up for the yaw, because everything is spinning the opposite direction now. So this motor is going to have to do the yaw, and then these motors are going to have to do the roll. Well, these two motors are going to have to do the yaw, and then these two are going to have to do the roll. And so it just kind of spreads the love out a little more. And the rear, you're usually pitching forward as well. So the rear motors are typically doing more work on top of all that. So out of curiosity, very recently, I moved a couple of these Tiny Whoops. I think it's just these two. I moved them to props in, and all of a sudden this starts happening. So in the interest of look at the most recent change and reverse that change, that's what I'm going to do on only the rig that was doing it. So this is the 30,000 kV rig, which was not doing it. This is the 27,000 kV rig that was doing it. Yeah, I'm going to put this guy back to props out. And that'll also, I'm going to leave this on props in, and that'll also let me maybe tell if there's any difference between props in and props out. I'm not going to be able to tell. But I'm going to do a quick change on this guy to see if that behavior stops. I didn't realize it was doing it this often, though. This is pretty nasty. But here's the rest of the flying. This is also going to be an example. The rest of this flying is an example of how you can kind of fly around stuff. Like once I realized that this was going on, it's like, all right, I can either go back inside and start changing shit, or I can just kind of fly around this. And I should have probably gone inside and changed it, but yeah, you can fly around this stuff. Just it's pretty much more often than not when I first take off, I do a bunch of hard flips and rolls like this, because it puts the ESC and the motors and everything under a bunch of stress. And yeah, I want to like figure this shit out as quickly as possible. So yeah, we'll also get to see like when this behavior happens more often than not, right? Like flips and rolls, yeah, sure, you're specifically doing movements to try to find this stuff. But then when you're actually flying, it's actually kind of surprising how infrequently this stuff will happen, which again is the reason why you should do hard flips and rolls, in my opinion, at the beginning of every battery, just to make sure that the thing is healthy, right? So yeah, wow, that's a nasty one there, Jesus. I guess technically there's also the chance that this is crash recovery, but it's not. But just in thinking about everything that it could possibly be. So what am I looking for? I am looking for, oh, idle. Okay. Yeah, so my first thrust linear. That's an interesting place to try to troubleshoot it. I was really looking for the minimum the idle. I wanted to change the yeah, wow, it didn't make it any better. I was looking to up the... So it's happening when I'm 0 throttle, which is what made me think to raise the idle. And this is me looking for where the idle is. I won't find it because it's not in here. It's something that you have to change in Betaflight. This is also me getting fucking chewed by mosquitoes. But yeah, this is me looking for the... where I can adjust the dynamic idle. This is also when it was still on dynamic idle. Brandon's Baked Beans last week had said that on anything 1S, recently the Blue Jay devs realized that you actually want to, or maybe it was the Betaflight devs, realized that you don't want to run dynamic idle. So I think at some point I did go inside and turn dynamic idle off. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is helpful. You guys kind of just following along with my... I thought that I'd found it here, but these numbers don't make much sense. Like I'd raised it up, and then I kind of realized that those numbers weren't making any sense. But we gave it a shot. I don't think it had any effect. I don't think it helped. And then when I plugged into when I plugged into Betaflight, I realized that that's not what I was changing. I don't know what that value was that I was changing there. But yeah, so there you go. There's some live sort of troubleshooting. In theory now, I mean, I think we're flying the same rig. In theory, I took it inside and changed some stuff. Let's see. So it's definitely the same camera. And now, yeah, now it's way better. So I'm assuming that I went inside and turned the digital idle off. I'm pretty sure, though, that it did it a little... I think it'll do it again. But turning the digital idle off, and I think I raised the idle up. I did go into ESC configurator. I'm also now flying from inside because of the goddamn mosquitoes. Yeah, see, it's still doing it a little bit there. So it definitely made it better, but it is still there a little bit. And I just decided to hell with it. Like, let's just fly it around and see how often it actually happens. So yeah, so this is the 27,000 kV rig. The whole point of me flying these was to get a comparison point, the 27,000 versus the 30,000. And so yeah, that's the 27,000 kV rig, much better. I think that was just the end of that battery. This is now... Is this the same? Oh man, nope. Yeah, so there you go. It is still doing it. This is the same rig. It is still doing it. Jesus. Oh, look at the core temperature going up. That's interesting. That starts to really point towards it being the ESC FETs and not the motors. But you know what? One of the reasons I wanted to talk through this is that there's multiple ways that you can fix these problems, right? Like the right way to fix it is always to try to fix the mechanical system, but you can't always do that, right? Like these motors are out of stock. And so, oh boy, there it is, real bad. So let's take a look at that one. So this is one of the hardest things that you can do, is full roll right, full yaw to the right. And so let's watch. Ready? We'll very easily see which motor's doing it. So we got hard right yaw, and yeah, it's a left side motor for sure. And that almost looked like it nosed down that time, but yeah, I don't know. So right yaw, full right yaw and roll. The roll is going to crank up these motors. The yaw is going to crank up. Yep, the yaw is going to crank up this motor. So I think it's that almost completely confirms that it's this motor and or ESC channel here, motor 3, ESC channel 3. So yeah, the right thing to do would be to swap this motor out. That would be the quickest and easiest way if I could get my hands on them. But there's other ways to kind of troubleshoot this and try to kind of work around it, right? And so we increased thrust linear because this is happening when I'm zeroed on the throttle. We increased we turned off the digital idle and went to regular idle in the motors tab, and then I also raised that up a little bit. This gets so these problems happen when the motors are down at low RPM typically, and that's when they have the least amount of power. So if you can just get the motors out of low RPM and get them spinning a little bit more, there'll be more power there. And that's also a way to kind of isolate if it's the motor or if it's the ESC. The ESC won't necessarily, it won't make a difference on the ESC side if you're spinning the motor a little bit faster. But again, we're just trying to get the motor to stop kind of stalling out here. And then, yeah, again, you can fly around a lot of this stuff, right? We're still ripping pretty good here, and we haven't had it happen in a while. So sometimes it's kind of like, well, you know, we can leave this and just we got to fly this rig a little bit gentle. What sucks about that, though, is that you'll forget to fly the damn thing gentle. You'll forget which rig it is, and like, you know, it's just stupid to not push these things really hard, right? Like, that's part of the fun, is blasting these things around. But yeah, if you're like out somewhere, or if the thing is out of stock, there's different ways that you can get it to still work so that you can still enjoy it while you're waiting for it to come back in. And so yeah, these are the 27,000 kV motors. They might not be performing all the way up to par for 27,000 kV. But now here, this is the 30,000 kV motor rig. This is one of the things that we wanted to... This is the whole reason that I was doing this, is so that I can compare these two. The OSD is just... At the time, the OSD was all jacked up on this thing. I have it fixed now. But yeah, this is now the 30,000 kV rig. Now that they were both on Blue Jay, there's a definite difference in power. The 30,000 kV motors definitely make a little bit more jam. This is me just kind of pumping the throttle up and down to try to notice that. I had to go back to flying outside so I could hear it and listen for the motors to spin up to the higher kV. Here you go again. What? Okay, hold on. So... that was the hand signal for 27,000 kV motors. So that would mean that the rig that was having the problems is the 30,000 kV rig. Okay. That's interesting. Although, wait. No, this is doing it again. Yeah. No. We're good. I'm wrong. The OSD threw me off. Yeah, I was looking at the OSD font. I thought the OSD font changed. Wait, didn't the OSD font change? What the hell? Hold on. Oh, nope, it didn't. Why did I think that? Oh, wait, no, it was a previous battery. I can't just rewind. Hold on, what? Did the OSD font change on me? What's happening? Hold on. I'm very confused now. So this is the small OSD font, but this is the little toothpick. And this is the one that was having... Oh, no, the OSD font didn't change. Oh, but look, it's the super minimal OSD. So, yeah, this is the 30,000 kV rig. What the hell? The cameras also look drastically different on these two. I hate when I forget to... When I'm doing this testing, it's really important to have some indication of which one is which. So I've got the OSD turned off here, which is not super helpful. That's probably where the confusion came in. Hey, there we go. And it's the janky OSD. Okay, yeah. So the janky OSD is so it's the 30,000 kV. Okay, all right. So this starts to make sense. The 30,000 kV rig, I've got a 5 amp Mobula AIO that I believe I remember putting it into here because it wasn't working totally perfect on the 65 millimeter rigs. So, all right, that makes more sense. I was a little confused a minute ago when I was thinking it was the X12 rig because I've not had any problems with this X12 AIO. So, okay, yeah, it's the 30,000 kV rig that's the problem. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to props out and we'll see what that does, but I think it's an ESC channel issue. So yeah, there's that. Not much of a difference, 27,000 kV versus 30,000. I think that the iGao 802 27s are plenty. I don't think there's any reason for us to like bug Tiny Whoop to make an 0802 30,000. 33,000 maybe. It might be cool to have a 33,000 kV 802 with a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. Like what I built on the indestructible rig, because those motors will work for an indestructible 65, and then you can also put them on a Jungle Jim Basher rig and just turn them down a little bit, just throttle limit them down to like 80%. What would 80% of 33,000 kV be? 33,000 times 0.8. That would bring them down perfect, 26,400. So yeah, you could like 82% throttle limit them or whatever, you know, like throttle limit them to 70%, fly it, and if it has enough power for you, great. If it doesn't, try 80%. If it still doesn't, try 90%. You can keep getting more motor, more power rather. So yeah, that might be cool to have an 802 33,000 kV 1.5 millimeter motor shaft motor. That might be really nice. Would be cool to have a motor that works on both 65 and 75, right? We don't necessarily, we don't really have that. So that'd be kind of neat. Maybe I'll talk to Jesse about that. Jesse and I keep missing each other. So yeah, I wanted to take a look at that. I think the rest of these flights are just me flying these things more. I don't think you can really see the difference between 27 and 30 in the flight footage. Here we go. 3. Okay, so here's the all right. So here's the 30,000 kV. This is probably after I made a bunch more changes. Let's see if it actually does it anymore. And I think I should be flying it a little bit harder. The camera looks a lot worse, but this is actually what like raw, like if you set like a proper HD cam into one of its like raw modes or don't boost the shit out of the contrast modes, this is actually what it'll look like, and it gives you more data that you can then bring out in just face first. You can bring out in editing. So yeah, like this isn't bad per se. This is just different. Unless you don't want to edit the footage. If you don't want to edit the footage, then the other Nano 3 in the other rig, which is the Emax Nano Hawk Nano 3, looks better than this. This is like very washed out. But again, this is kind of what I want for when I get it into Premiere. And it looks like it's not really misbehaving all that much. Well, it was a pretty hard yaw and roll to the right, and it was fine there. So some of the changes seem to have helped as I clatter it into the mailbox. But yeah, I'm definitely going to go back to props out because I don't see any real improvement from props in. I was able to take this thing off from the grass a whole bunch of times, which a lot of times Tiny Whoops have a really hard time with. I think that's just because these motors do make good power. With low power motors, like they literally won't be able to push a blade of grass out of the way, and you'll have to go hunt it down every single time that you crash in the grass, which is just impossibly annoying. So yeah, and this is also me trying to figure out how to fly a 75 millimeter Tiny Whoop outside, right? Like finding tiny little gaps in the garden, one single leaf getting stuck in the motor and stalling it out, right? I was just talking about that. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the other things that drives me mad about tiny whoops outside is like anything goes in the duct, and you're taking the walk. Obviously not the end of the world, but yeah. Here's the other camera on the X12 rig, to give you that kind of head-to-head camera comparison. This is going to be, oh, and you can really see the purple. Somebody had mentioned in chat last week some of the Runcam Nano 3s have this terrible purple in the corners, and this is one of them. And again, this is the Emax Nanohawk version of the Runcam Nano 3 that you have to direct solder. And so this is on the X12. But yeah, this is me flying more 75mm tiny whoop batteries outside the house, figuring out like what's fun, like how do you fly a slow rig outside and have it still be interesting. Having that purple in the corners though, that sucks. That really sucks. That's gonna be a nightmare to get out in Premiere, excuse me. So yeah, I don't love that, but at least it's on the sides and not like everywhere. Walter says, you're a smart cookie, think for yourself, grab opportunities, think positive. It's forming positive thinking. You got a lot to be grateful for, people like me and the rest of them. Thank you, dude. Matt Ertson says, that's pretty much Bob's original toothpick formula. I still love it after all this time. I'm not totally down with the 1S toothpick thing. I think toothpicks should be 2S minimum. Schubert Technology says, chat is being ignored, so I'm punching. Have a good one. Schubert, if you ever come back or if you watch this on repeat, I don't read the entire chat. That's not the live stream that I want to put on. I tell you guys every single live stream at the beginning that if you type CiottiFPV into your chat comment, I will absolutely read your chat, or if you do a super chat, I will read it. But my live streams are not just man gets in front of camera and reads. That is boring as shit as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, sorry that you didn't get the memo on needing to just type my name, but it should be like that anyway. Like in chat, there's lots of other people, right? So just like typing a chat comment, you can't expect every single person in chat to read it. So if you're typing to a person, just like in the real world, right? Like you don't just walk up to a stranger and just blah, 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 blah. Like you walk up to somebody, you say like, hey, mister, or like if you know their name, you say their name. So in the chat, same deal. Like type someone's name, and then YouTube will light that up in orange for them, and then they'll know that you're talking to them. You can't just expect every single person to read every single thing you type. So sorry if you didn't get the memo. I do say it at the beginning of every single live stream. But yeah, that's how it works. That's what this live stream is. You probably won't see this because you're gone now, it sounds like. But if you ever do see this, that's how it works here. And it works really, really well. This way I can actually like do things rather than just read. I can have like subjects. I can teach you guys a lot more and impart a lot more of the wisdom that I've picked up in like the 8 years that I've been doing this, rather than just mindlessly reading through the chat. So that's why I choose to do it that way. If you don't like that, that's on you. Totally fine. But I have found that in many, many, many years of doing this, that this is the best possible way of doing it. And so, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're a huge live streamer and you've found a better way of doing it. If so, that's great. I love that for you. But I've experimented a lot over the last 3+ years in live streaming, and this way that I've chosen to do it is definitely the best way. So, yeah, if you want to hang around, that's how it's going to work. Beef FPV says, I had the same, we got that. Thank you again for that, Beef. Nathan Otis says, you good, dude? I'm not, but, sometimes you have to work when you feel like shit. Brent Anderson says, that was the Deja Ciotti ESC firmware flash and refly. Salute. I forget what we were talking about. I'm way behind on chat. I apologize, dude. It's my bad. Michael Blade says, what's up? AJ Farah says, did you see the HDZero monitor you sent? You bots video would be perfect for you. Does not look well. So yeah, I'm starting to think it exactly what I need. Cole Powers says, did you see Mads Tech's new video? I don't know if it does HDMI out, but it should. One of the, I'm assuming that Cole is referring to the HDZero monitor. I did not see that video, but I did see, Matt, I didn't watch it, but from the thumbnail, Mads Tech tore apart the Avata 2, and the headline in the thumbnail was like, "You won't be repairing this one." So that sucks. I mean, that not surprising. When I took apart the Avata 1 for somebody and stupidly agreed to put it into an Axis frame, I was actually kind of surprised that it wasn't more unrepairable. So it does not surprise me at all that the Avata 2 is worse in that respect. I don't know. If you want to be super cynical, you can say like, oh yeah, they did that on purpose because they want more repair revenue. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think it's more of a case of, you know, it's hard to build shit. It's, you know, look at cars, right? Like, it's really hard to build a very complex system that is then also easy for somebody to take apart and repair. You know, the more shit that you pack into something, the more of a pain in the ass it's going to be to take apart and repair, right? One of the brilliant things about Miatas is that they don't have anything, you know, like some of them even have manual windows, right? And when there's nothing going on, when there's no electronics, when it's like a super basic car, seats, steering wheel, four wheels, engine, it's very easy to work on and repair and replace and whatnot. So yeah, the more shit that gets packed in, the more of a nightmare it's going to be to repair. So that's not super surprising, but I don't know. You know, in a perfect world, it would everything would be easy to repair. I don't know. Northern Tier says bot has a good video on it on the monitor. Rockcrawler says bot's already done a review. I think we're all that's all in review to the in reference to the monitor, not review, in reference. Pequeño Frijole says missed the giveaway stream. Can't believe I won one. Stoked to get some goodies from you. Hope things are going all right. Take care, dude. Thank you, man. It actually shipped out yesterday. So yeah, you'll have it before you know it, brother. Enjoy. Thank you for joining the Patreon. That's what happens when you join my Patreon sometimes. Star Stripes Jacket says, does the flight controller have black box? It does not. None of these Happy Model flight controllers have black box, which is why we have to sit here and watch the video at 0.25 speed and theorize what's going on. Jeremy Overesh says, do you have black box data for these? And it exists. Your Mobula 6 has black box, Jeremy? I didn't think they did. That's like the only thing missing from my Mobula 6s. What the fuck Mobula 6 do you have that has black box? What the hell? Hold on. I did not mean to start GoPro Player. Come on now. Easy way to tell if you have black box is to look up here. And so yeah, my Mobula 6s do not have black box. This is what no black box looks like. Where on earth did you buy a Mobula 6 from that has black box? Because I'm going to buy all of them. I don't think maybe do you have a 2024? Although I didn't think that had black box either. But it's easy to take a look. No, 2024 also does not have black box. The only AIOs that I know of that are worth, well, I mean, there's only two AIOs that are worth anything, but the Beta FPV cross style AIO, but that doesn't have a VTX built in, so I don't really like it for analog rigs. But yeah, let us know which Mobula 6 you've got that does have black box, because that's amazing. I would kill for black box on these things. AJ Farah says Botgrinder has the HDZero screen. Maybe he'll lend it to you or test all the functions. To be honest, I mean, I'm almost why, like, it would be pretty silly for HDZero to not just take the boards from the goggles and drop them into the screen, and the specs look exactly the same. So I don't even need to test it, to be honest. I just need to think it through. I mean, so far, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to snag one of those screens and then sell these goggles. I can sell the goggles for way more than what those screens cost. And yeah, for my uses, I'll be able to wear the lighter weight goggles. I won't have to retire the Fat Shark goggles, which will feel great. And yeah, and have the screen just wherever the HDMI cable is to go to the big ass TV screens at the place, and away we go. So yeah, I don't even need to test it. I'm just gonna assume that, because why would they? Why would they change anything between the goggles and why would they redesign a board for the screen that doesn't do what these do? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm pretty confident in that. Parkour guy says, better late than never. How's it going, my dude? It's shitty, but it's all good. I'll live. Martin Tanley says, I'm just dealing with mental health bullshit because that's my life. Martin Tanley says, hi, I'm trying to build a 65mm whoop, having a hard time with the ESC boards. Is the new Super X good for both the new ecosystem and the Whoop VTX Lite? If I decided to switch it up, new ecosystem and the Whoop. What is the Whoop VTX Lite? Whoop VTX Lite. Whoop VTX Lite. What the hell is that? Whoop Lite bundle. Is this what you're talking about? Super X AIO. Is that what they're calling the 2024? I think it is. So nobody really knows. This has not been out long enough for anybody to have any actual data on whether or not it's good. Initial impressions seem okay, but you know, after 2 or 3 or 400 batteries, that's when, to me, in my opinion, an AIO actually becomes good or bad. So it might be. If it were me though, I would probably go with the Beta FPV cross style AIO, because it's a known quantity. It's not known to be completely indestructible, but it's also not known to die constantly. This is a completely unknown quantity, and I don't really see much of it. I don't really know anything that, well, it's got 12 amp FETs, but you're never going to put motors on that'll use that. So yeah, for me, I would go with the Beta FPV cross AIO for what you're looking to do. But the Super X might be okay. It might be, but you're rolling the dice because they haven't been out long enough. CMYK says, what's up? YouTube did the thing. Limit says, I haven't been here for a while. Good to see you. I hope you and your family are doing well. Family's doing great. I'm not, but I'll be okay. Northern Tier says, when I type at Teddy, he answers. What? How? Oh, I get it. It's a joke. I'm the worst. Kevin Sumner says, the Mobula 6 2024 Eco has black box. That's very cool. So the space that they saved not having to put a VTX into it, they were able to put a chip for black box. That's very, very cool. Jeremy says, I think it's because we don't have the built-in AIO. It adds 16 megabytes flash for black box. Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Jeremy also says they're still using the Super X HD AIO. Who's they? I'm a little confused there. Okay, I'm caught up on chat. We talked through the flight footage stuff. Let's do some soldering, and then we will wrap up. So it's 8:20. So Joshua is apparently Live streaming? What's he live streaming? I don't see it though. What the fuck is this? What is this weird sponsored thing? He is. Look at that. Oh, he's just doing Q&A. Oh, very cool. I guess because he canceled on a Monday. Sweet. All right, so we're going to solder these guys up. And along the way, hopefully you guys can learn a little something about soldering. This is one of my freestyle glide builds. I absolutely love race wires. These are... hold on. It's all blurry because Logitech sucks the big one. Hold on. There we go. Should clear up in a second, hopefully. There it goes. All right, cool. All right. There it is. So yeah, you're gonna see in a minute one of the reasons that I absolutely love these. The other reason that I love these is that this area of the arm is where the prop strikes happen, and you can hit these things like 100 times with a propeller before you kill them. Whereas if you just have bare wires here, you're gonna cut those bare wires, and then bad things happen. So. Yeah, these things are awesome for durability, but also for motor changes, which you're going to see in a minute. Instead of, at this point, that I want to change motors, instead of having to pull the top plate off or like sit here and struggle with the battery strap and try to get the soldering iron in here and be all annoyed, this all stays, these guys stay. All I have to do is hold the motor up here, measure the wires out, cut and strip the wires, and away we go. It makes motor swaps infinitely easier, and realistically, it makes like motor swaps in the field not gonna take your entire day and like melt your battery strap and just have you losing screws and shit like that. So yeah, I really, really, really recommend these ARM LEDs. Pretty much all the resellers sell them. So they're pretty easy to find. One of the things that I like to do is you can just kind of hold the motor up and just sort of line the holes up and get a good idea and like cut it there, and you'll probably be pretty damn close. But what you can also do is just really quickly bolt one motor down and get the length, and then it'll be perfect. Because if you get this a little bit wrong, then the motor wires are kind of ugly, and yeah, I don't know. For me, it just makes sense to really quickly bolt one of these motors down, and you don't have to drive the screws in all the way. Just get it to the point where the motor is exactly in the right spot, and then push the motor wires down flat. Actually, you know what? That's not going to work, because on some rigs, I'll put these ARM LEDs in the exact same spot. This is a rig where these would have potentially moved. So yeah, this might not work all that well. But on motor number 4, push these wires down. I do like to give a little bit extra, so I'll push the motor wire down and then hold it up here on the race wire. And then when I cut it, you don't cut it here, because you need more wire to go to the pads, right? Come up here. And one of the things I'll do is just like, you can just kind of nip one of them, and then you can pull them off and cut them flat. And like I said, just give it like the tiniest little bit extra. So just nip one of the motor wires, and then you can just sort of take it off and cut all 3 of them straight, and you'll be good to go. So that's a tiny little tip there. There we go. So we left that little mark in it. hold these completely straight, and then come in here, line up with the mark, and now those are the exact right length for motor number 4. Save these. These are great wires to have. At some point, you might mangle your leads between the ESC and the race wire, and these are the perfect things to replace them with. So definitely hold on to these. I have stacks and stacks and stacks of these, so I ship these out in a lot of the giveaways. So now you need to strip and tin the motors. This is a good time to turn on your soldering iron so that it's ready to go. Hold the wires here. Don't just go yanking on these wires. Hold them here so that you're not pulling. In here, in this shrink wrap, it goes from multi-stranded wire to single strand copper. So if you just go yanking on these, you can potentially rip these wires off and then you've just destroyed the stator base. So make sure that you grab and pinch these wires here. And then the way that I like to strip these to make sure that I don't nick any of the internal metal is to just use my fingernails. And you don't have to strip much off. Just come in here, give it a little pinch, and then yank it off. And you've now got full strands of wire. You haven't nicked or damaged any of the inner strands of wire because your fingernails are not as hard as the metal wire. And it's also quick and easy to do it, right? And doing this on the bench, you're going to get used to doing it. If you have to do it out in the wild, you're not even going to have to think about it. So remove the insulation. Just make sure you pinch good and hard, because otherwise you're going to pull on it and it's not great. With the big motors, it's fine, but with little motors, you can pull the silicone out. Just straighten these guys out. You kind of flatten them a little bit when you're pinching really hard. Just try to round them back out here. No big deal. You're going to flatten them out when you push them to the pads anyway. And all right, hold on. All right, so now we've got the bare wires exposed. Separate them a little bit because the next step is to tin them. I'm just going to use actually, no. Hey, so there's a version 2 of the soldering goop coming out, and they're going to send me some of it, which will be pretty cool. So look out for that. I'm excited by that. This is mass adhesive electronic goop. It's basically just blue fun tack, but it's been designed to not absorb heat, and it also doesn't get all melty and liquidy and goopy and disgusting when you get it really hot. It's really good stuff. And yeah, like I said, there's a version 2 coming, so stay tuned for that. It's perfect. It gives the motor some nice height here so that you can just stick it in there. It's going to stay where it is, and then you've got room to get the tip of your soldering iron under these wires, which is what you want, because what you want to do is push the solder down from above. So take your little roll of solder here, pull a little bit of it out, use it as your little handle, and what you're going to do is put the heat source below. Always move the work. Don't move yourself to the work. Move the work so that you can comfortably work on it rather than contorting yourself in ridiculous directions. Just take it and rotate it so that it's correctly in front of you here. And you're going to put the soldering iron below the wire. At this point, if you're a beginner, what you want to do is take your flux. This is how I really like flux, is in these big syringes. You can get them all over Amazon. And as a beginner, one of the best things you can possibly do is just flux everything. And so just put a little tiny bit of flux on the end of each wire. And that's going to really help with heat transfer. It's going to help everything stay nice and clean. And so now you're going to put the tip of the soldering iron below. If you'd like, again, as a beginner, best practices are going to be to put a little bit of solder on the tip so that it's smoking. The smoke is the flux burning off. The wire goes down below, and then you push the solder in from above. And what you're trying to do is push solder in between all of the individual strands of wire. We're going to go to this camera so that I can hopefully give you an even better view of what we just did there. And that's it. That is tinning wires. It is very important to tin wires. What you're trying to do is get a bunch of solder on the end of the wire so that you don't have to add it in the next step. So come in below. We've now got a nice little ball of solder here. There's no smoke, so there's no flux, but that's okay. We fluxed the wire, put it in from the bottom, and then push the solder in between the strands from the top. As long as it's smoking, that means there's still flux. That's a good thing. And then the last one here, heat down below, push the solder in from above, and you'll see. There it is. You'll see when it melts, you'll get some bubbling, and then it'll chill out, and just let them sit. Let them sit there and cool on their own. Don't blow on them. Don't do anything. And now these wires are properly tinned. So what we've done is we've put a bunch of solder in between the strands of wires, and then we've also got like an external coating of solder. So now when you go to solder this up to the pads, you don't have to try to have 3 hands, right? Like at this point, all you need to do is put these wires down on the pads. You're also gonna tin the pads, pre-tin the pads, which builds up a little blob of solder there. So you've got enough solder here and there, where all you have to do is with your left hand hold it in place, and with your right hand bring the heat in, and that's it. You don't have to try to like balance this on like some stupid helping hand and then come in here and add more solder with the soldering iron, and then, oh God forbid, it moves and it's not like, no. You add solder to the pad, you add solder to the wire, and then you join them. You don't try to do it all at once. Trying to do it all at once is the biggest mistake that people make when soldering, and you'll never get a good joint, and you'll never like have a good time soldering. You'll never be able to do this quickly. It'll always be a nightmare. This is a super fundamental thing that so many people that have been in this hobby for a ridiculous long time don't know, and it just blows my mind. And they're the people that hate soldering. Like if you follow the fundamentals, soldering's not that bad. It really isn't. Right now what I'm doing is just pulling back the insulation a little bit on these wires. So now again, separate the wires so that you have room to work. Get this roughly where you want it. You can either use tweezers to hold the wire in place. All your left hand is doing is holding the wire in place. If I put this camera over here, maybe I can... Having a camera in the way makes this so much more difficult. When I solder not on the stream, my God, it is so much easier. The other thing I'm going to do is put magnification on my head. Even with these big wires, seeing what you're doing is super important. These stupid things will cost you like 15 bucks. These have helped the quality of my work more than anything that I've ever done. Using these and being able to see what the hell I'm doing has made such a difference in like not hating working on these quads as much, because I can actually see with like 2.5x or 3x or whatever the hell it is magnification, and I have really good vision. I still have like 20/20 vision, I think. But just having a little bit of magnification, because everything we do is relatively small, makes a massive difference. So again, tweezers are super helpful. It's going to prevent you from getting burned. It's also going to let you kind of get closer to the tip. What I tend to do, though, is not use magnification on the first one. On the first one, what I'll do is I'll just hold the damn thing, brace my hand against the desk, because the desk ain't going to move, right? So we've got solid points of contact here. What I don't want to do is hold it like this. Holding it like this, my shoulder is doing all the work, right? My shoulder is holding my entire arm up in the air. And go figure, I'm going to be a vibrating mess, because my shoulder has to hold my entire arm up, right? Put almost all the time, you're going to put your wrist down. And then you can also even put your fingers down a lot of the times. The shorter the distance between the end of the wire and the last point of physical contact, the shorter that distance, the less shaking that you're going to get. So in this case, and you want to hold the motor flat. Don't hold the motor sideways like this, because then you're going to solder the wire on and then twist it, and the wire is going to be all weird and twisted up. You don't want that. Hold the motor flat. And again, I'm only going to do this on the very first one. The next ones I'm going to use with the tweezers. And you might not want to do this first one by hand. You might want to do it with tweezers. But for me, I find it quicker and easier to do this first one by hand. And so we've got solder here. Well, I might not have quite enough solder on this pad. We'll pretend like this is a brand new race wire, and we're going to tin this pad. And so all you got to do is put the tip of the iron on the back of the pad, and then push solder into the front, and now you've got a nice solder ball. This one has plenty. This one actually literally does not have enough, so we'll add a little bit, and that's it. So now these pads have enough solder on them where, again, we don't have to add any extra. So now we're going to come in with the wire. We want to get the wire exactly in the right spot where the insulation is hanging off the back, just like that. We want just the strands to be up on the pad, and then the insulation will hang off the back. If you push this too far forward, the insulation is going to be on the pad, and then the wire is going to end up at an angle like this. You don't want that. You want the individual strands to lay as flat as possible on the pad itself. And in order to do that, you have to hang the insulation off. So you get it exactly in the right position. One more tip is to add more flux. Flux it all, friends. There is no such thing as too much flux unless you're using a tiny little motor and you're getting flux all over the bearing, but that's a pretty fringe case. So add more flux to the pads, add a little bit more flux to the wires. This is going to make your life so much easier. The amount of time that it spends you to add flux will be drastically offset by the number of times that you have to rework this and the frustration that comes from reworking it. And when you rework it, it's bad for it. You want to put as little heat into this as possible. So the more prep, the better. So we get this perfectly in position before we bring the heat in. We make sure that we're solid, and I'm going to shut up so I stop shaking. That's all there is to it, my friends. That's the pace. That's the amount of time that you want to let it cool. You don't blow on it. You just stare at it, and you watch as it cools itself down. Now, at this point, it's almost impossible to get this next one over, right? Like I literally can't do this by hand now. So now's when you need to bring the tweezers in. Have two sets of tweezers. Have a set of tweezers that are kind of blunt, like this, but then also have one or two really sharp sets of tweezers. The sharp sets of tweezers come in really handy with stuff like this where you've got wires right next to each other. So now you're going to grab this next wire all the way down at the tip where they're nice and sharp. Give them a good pinch. Bring it in where you need it. And do it again. Not quite perfect. Just right. One of the other tips that I just forgot is that when you grab the wire, you can push these down against the carbon fiber and then re-grab the wire. And now there will be zero vibration. See how solid that is versus look up here. There's a little bit of movement. So I'm actually going to... that one's fine. I was still enough. On this one, I'm going to do it perfectly, though. So you bring it up. I'm going to have to rotate the motor a little bit so that this wire becomes long enough. The motor was sitting off to the left. So now the motor is straight. Now the wire is long enough. We're going to grab the wire, get it into position, and then I'm going to push the tweezers down against the carbon. But actually what I'm going to do is not push them all the way down. This wire is going to move down when the solder liquefies, so you don't want the tips of the tweezers all the way down against the carbon quite yet. So you want to bring this in, get it to melt, and now you can kind of release and then push down against the carbon and re-grab it. And now when it's cooling, there's zero motion. That's also why I stopped talking, is so that while it was cooling, there was as little motion as possible. And now the most important step is checking your work. With the nerd goggles, you can do that, but these are only like 2.5x magnification. What you really want is a 5x loop to check your check your work. Jesus. So get this out of the way. Get your face down here nice and close. And make sure that they're not bridging. Make sure there's not any weirdness. And you're good to go. If you fluxed, if you followed the fundamentals, you'll almost always be fine, but never assume. Always check your work. Always get in there and look at it with 5x magnification. You'll see stuff that you've never seen before with it. It really makes a big deal. That's like a 9 out of 10 there. There's a little tiny bit of extra solder on the third joint. The first one is pretty much perfect. The other ones are pretty close. We don't really need them to be absolutely perfect. This is like you can take twice as much time and get them a little bit better, but we break these motors pretty frequently, and so this does not have to last for a lifetime. This has to last 6 months until we decide we wreck this motor, or 6 days in my case a lot of times. But you want it to be good enough that the damn thing doesn't fall off and hit somebody in the head, right? And so now I left a little bit too much length on these motors. You can see the back of the motor is pretty offset. But what's nice about these LED race wires is you can mount them in a way that you have a little bit of wiggle room here. So we should actually be fine. Let me get this bolted down and I'll show you what I mean. I cut this motor ever so slightly too long. It's not the end of the world at all. You could make an argument that you want to do that anyway in case you need to rework it and cut the wires a little bit shorter. It's always going to be better to cut them a little bit too long than a little bit too short, right? Although that is one of the nice things about the race wires is that you have some wiggle room, right? Like if you cut the motor wire, if you direct solder the motor to the ESC and you cut the wires too short, you're done. You can't move the ESC. These LED race wires, or just race wires in general, you can always move them forward or backwards a little bit, as long as the wires between them and the ESC aren't too short, right? But yeah, that's one of the nice things. So you see, we've got just a little bit of a kind of kink here. Totally fine. It looks like hell, which drives me nuts. But functionally, you could make the argument that it's actually better to kind of have that. The next one I will not cut too long like that. I can promise you. Because yeah, that drives me insane. But nothing wrong with it. This is not going to get any prop strikes, right? Like you're never going to bend the propeller so much. Like you would have to break the tip of the propeller off, and then you would have to have it bend down in order to hit the wires here. So yeah, the wires are super protected here. The prop strikes are all going to happen out there. Once you've bent the wire, the prop this much, it's not going to prop strike the wires. It's going to prop strike the arm, right? The prop strikes happen like right in here, right in the middle. Go figure of the race wire LED that I've put on there. And so now you just do that whole thing 3 more times. Let me try getting caught up on chat here a little bit. Kevin Sumner says YouTube ads at the top of the searches are getting aggressive and ridiculous. I'll say. Jeremy says, are each of those 2x3 chiclet things on the arms the ESCs? If so, now I finally get why they call the others 4-in-1. So we've already kind of answered this, but yeah, no, these are just LEDs. These are arm LEDs. You always want to run a 4-in-1 ESC. ESCs are very heavy. When we used to have ESCs out on the arms, there was a serious lack of performance from the weight that you've added to the arms. Also, prop strikes would hit the really sensitive bits on the ESC and break them. So yeah, arm LEDs suck. Going to 4-in-1s, we gained a lot of performance and a lot of reliability. And yeah, I know there's a couple of companies that still sell arm LEDs, but you don't want to do them in most cases. You want 4-in-1s for sure. I run 3 screws per motor to try to save as much weight as possible. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've yet to have a situation where like it's bitten me in the ass. But it is important which 3 screws you run. You always want to run the 2 outside screws, and then you want to run the forward screw. This is the camera here, so you want to run this screw here. Think about all the collisions that are going to happen. This thing is going to bang in the front end like this, and then it's going to bang sideways. It's never really going to hit in here. Like, how the hell would you get it to hit in here? I guess if you yawed it around and there was a pole or something like that, but it's just not going to happen. So you want to run the outsides always, and then the front. And then in the rear, it's the same kind of deal. You want to run the outsides and then this rear, because you can potentially back this into something. Here, I mean, I guess you could argue that if you were rotating perfectly and there was a pole, you could kind of like wrap into the pole. Realistically, it's going to hit here. If you're rotating, it's going to smack there, and that outer screw is going to give you plenty of strength. So yeah, boom, boom, boom is what you want on the rear, in my opinion. The front is easy. The front is an easy decision. This one, and then the 2 outsides. If you're worried about it, run 4 in the rear, 3 in the front, and then I also only run the TPU arm guards in the front. And the weight of the TPU arm guard will get offset by the weight of the 4th screw in the back, and you'll potentially have a more balanced thing, but fuck that. Run 3 in the front, 3 in the back, TPU arm guards in the front, and profit, my friends. Ramdongo says 8S balance lead wouldn't go amiss. Good length for the charges. What do you mean? I'm confused by that, Ram. Star Stripes Jacket says, I started using MR30 connectors for my motors last year when I was testing a bunch of 5-inch motors to see what I liked. So nice being able to pop a new motor on in the field. There's a lot of people running the MR30s, and I haven't really heard many complaints about them, which is super interesting. I really like these arm LEDs. I love having LEDs on the arms here for a lot of different reasons. So I won't do the MR30 thing, but I don't know. Have you guys heard anybody bitching about them failing? I've not. That was the reason that we didn't run them for the longest time. Those have been out forever. But yeah, I know there's a lot of people running them now. You can finally like buy motors with them already on. I know that was one of the other big hang-ups, is that like they're kind of a pain in the ass to... Yeah, they're a pain in the ass. They're time-consuming. They're a pain in the ass. They're harder to install than these because it's like an XT60 or an XT30 where it's got that cup. And, you know, if you got to plug the male into the female, otherwise the pins will bend. And it's just, yeah, these are easy, man. It's just a flat solder job. Put it on there. Bang. Just like you just saw. But yeah, now that you can get some motors with them, man, that makes life easy. You just have to deal with it one time, just like with these, and then plug them in and away you go. Really, really, really cool stuff. I love the way that these look so much. And, you know, if I'm flying at night for a gig, my rig has to be visible for whatever the hell it is, 1.2 gigawatt statute miles. And these serve that purpose. These are very bright, so they kind of kill 2 birds, so to speak. I am going to do the lazy method here and just kind of line it up. We'll do one more for you guys to see. And, all right, so that's looking about right. Let me just double check it. All right, good there. Hold it here. And then put a little mark. Get this out of here. Pull these straight. Use that mark as a guide. And there we go. What else is happening in the chat? Parkour guy says, please help. I had a perfectly flying Mobula 6 0802 30,000 kV, and after switching from cockroach frame to both 2024 Mobula 6 and crown frame, flyaway and weird shake on Discord. change the frame back to the frame that works, or cripple your PIDs and get a worse flying quad. That's a simple one, man. The cockroach frame is awesome. And yeah, the Mobula 6 2024 frame is lighter, and with lightness you get a decrease in stiffness. And then the crown frame, it weighs basically the same, but it's just not as stiff of a frame. So if you want to keep the flight performance that you previously had, you're going to have to go back to the other frame. If you're willing to take a hit in flight performance, you can decrease your PIDs to make it work with the more floppy frames. But I would not recommend that. I've found the cockroach frame to be the best for this reason and other reasons as well. So yeah, man, that's a simple one. All right. Cool. Always make sure that you pinch these hard enough. When you don't pinch hard enough and then you yank like that, it really sucks. It pulls the silicone up over the end of the wire, which is just a pain in the ass. And then this is the other step that I guess I kind of missed. It's just using your fingernail to pull the silicone insulation down a little bit. Sorry, you guys couldn't see it. Yeah, I just use my fingernail to just pull this, because when even though you pinch it good, when you pull off it pulls the insulation up a little bit. Different motors will use different wires. Sometimes the silicone is more stretchy. This stuff on here is not all that stretchy, which is why I skipped it the previous time. But like sometimes you'll do that, and then the silicone will be damn near all the way up at the end of it. So yeah, it's just super easy to go and pull it back down. So next step is to tin, and get this here. I'm not gonna flux. Solder has a flux core. So once you've done this for long enough, you don't have to add as much flux as what I was showing you on that first motor. But for your first year of soldering, do yourself a favor and add flux to everything. It's going to make your life so much easier. So tin the tip of the soldering iron. Smoke means there's flux. Soldering iron below the wire. Push solder up through the top of the wire. Here's an example of what I mean. If I'd fluxed it, we'd be done already. And there we go. The flux helps massively with the heat transfer. The reason that the reason that the solder won't melt is that there's not enough heat where you're putting it. And the flux helps with that quite a bit. And it also keeps everything nice and clean. The way that I do this without flux is I put the solder, you've got the wire, and then you've got the tip of your soldering iron. And I'm gonna have to show you this another way. This is the tip of the soldering iron. This is your wire. You bring your soldering iron up to the wire, and then if you just try to push the solder in the top of the wire takes a second to heat up. What you do is you actually put it here. You push the solder in between the wire and the tip of the soldering iron. It hits the soldering iron and it melts immediately, and then it flows up onto the wire real quick. So to not use flux, again, the easy button is just to use flux, and then you just push it down and it all goes. But if you're having trouble with that, put the solder at the angle and then up. So you just kind of dab it at an angle, and that gets the heat transfer really going, and then you can add it on the top. That's how you do it without flux. But the easy button is to put flux on the wire, and then as soon as you bring the soldering iron up to the wire, it hits the flux, and bang, it gets this nice and warm right away, and then you can just immediately push the solder down through the top of the wire. And I think this is motor number 3 that I measured this up for, right? Yep, looks about right. So first one we're going to do by hand. These pads do have enough solder on them, but I am going to add flux. Just a little bit. And here we go. Let me do this with magnification. quite a bit. Why is this camera always crooked? I feel like I fix this camera constantly. How is it, like, always becoming crooked? It's very... defies all logic. Oh, also, make sure you clean the tip of your soldering iron, my friends. When you put the soldering iron away, don't clean it. But when you take it back out, put your little cleaning thing right next to your whatever holds your soldering iron, and when you take the iron out, go right into the cleaner. Cool? That makes a big difference. And I'm not going to tin the tip of the soldering iron this time because I have plenty of solder on here. But again, if you're a beginner, do that. This first one in place. Hang the silicone off the end of the pad. Push down a little bit. And away we go. This second wire has a big blob of solder on the bottom. Let's get rid of that. That would be too much solder. Solder always travels towards the heat. So all you got to do is bring the tip of the iron in and then sweep it out. And you'll take a bunch of the solder with you. You can go into your solder cleaner and get rid of it. And now we're going to have to use the tweezers because these wires are so close together. Grab it. Again, move the work to you. Move this other wire out of the way. See that wire is sitting perfectly there, exactly where we want it. Grab it with the tweezers. Get it right where you need it. Then bring the heat in. There we go. Hang the silicone off the edge. Give it a second to cool. Last one. Same deal. Make sure the wire is exactly where you want it. There it is. Some of the solder. Okay, yeah, no. So this wire ended up kind of sitting up on the pad, and it's not sitting totally flat. So we're going to do what's called reworking it. When you rework, it's a great time to add a little bit of flux. I think I might actually add a little bit of solder too. So there's not quite enough solder on this pad, which is why it happens. So we just added a little bit of flux. Your little spoolie boy here is really nice because you can set it right on the desk like that. And then pick a little bit of it up and then come onto the pad with it. So we're going to grab the wire first here. All right, get a good grip on it, and then pick up a little bit of solder over here. All right, so here's a really good thing. When I'm trying to pick the solder up, it's making a ball. It's not sticking to the tip of the iron. That's because the tip of the iron is dirty and oxidized. You need to clean it. If the solder is ever not sticking to the tip of the iron, it means the tip of your iron is dirty. You need to clean, and it starts to get dirty the second that you stop cleaning it. So stop cleaning it, pick the solder up, get the wire where you need it. And now that it's a clean soldering iron tip, the solder will actually stick to it. And I can pick it up and put it onto this pad. And now we're good to go. Now I was holding the wire properly. What happened is I was holding the wire like this. This is the pad. I was holding the wire like this, and I got a little sloppy, and I dropped my hand down, and the wire cooled sitting up like that. And you don't want that. You want the wire to be completely flat on the pad with the silicone hanging off here. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. That's the kind of thing that you'll see with the 5X loop that you might not see with your regular eyeballs. So let's take a closer look at these. And yeah, they're looking really good. You can also kind of look at them sideways to make sure that that's not happening. To make sure that they're coming straight off the pad. You don't want any kind of angle up or down. That's going to give you a worse contact patch between the two. And now in theory, I cut these a little bit better. No, I cut this one a little bit too long again. But again, that's okay. Always better to cut it a little bit long than a little bit too short. Oh yeah, and this is ever just the tiniest little bit too long. This one's definitely better than the one a minute ago. So we'll throw our screws in, and again, rear. So we're gonna go 2 outer, and then the 1 rear here. And these are 2.5 millimeter screws. I like using the big socket cupped 2.5 mil screws on the ends of the arms because they get a lot of abuse, as you can see by how chewed up they are. These will not strip as frequently. There we go. It's hard to like show you guys what I'm doing, but also be able to see what the hell I'm doing. Ideally, you also want these locked. You want to Loctite these. Mine have dried Loctite on them from previously having done it. These motor screws will absolutely back themselves out. So yeah, make sure you be Loctite them. You only have to Loctite them like once or twice, and then they'll have enough of the residue on it where they won't back out anymore. And there you go. If you don't fly backwards ever, maybe do this screw, but don't. Back there, I think, is the way to go. And yeah, you can see it's just a little bit less of a thing, but still kind of a thing. But again, I can always push these forward if it really drives me insane. And that's it, my friends. I'm not going to do all 4. It's 9:01 already. Go get you some bot grinder. Let me get caught up on chat, and then we will part ways for the evening. Anybody learn anything? Say yes if you learned something. It'll make me feel better. A little bit. I'm excited to try these motors. No real reason to spin them up in beta flight either. You're not going to learn anything. All motors are well balanced out of the box. It's fine. Where we at? Northern Tier says, thanks to you, I mastered soldering. Love that, brother. Limits 20 says, why don't you mount the motor and then solder the wires? I like the ability to move the motor around a little bit so that I can get the wire in the perfect spot. Once the motor is mounted, so like you saw, those wires were a little bit too long. So if I'd mounted the motor, the wire would have been a little bit too long. I would have had to have been pulling back on the wire. And that just, like, the wire is pushing forward and it's annoying and it's slipping in the tweezers and it's just, yeah, it's, if you cut the motor wires absolutely perfect, or if your race wire LEDs are not double-sided taped down, then it's fine. But yeah, once they're taped down, I leave the motor loose so that I can move the motor left and right. Like, you solder that first wire by hand. That's quick and easy and great. And then the other 2 wires, sometimes you have to like move the motor like this to make those 2 wires longer or shorter. And that way you're not having to like death grip it with your tweezers. You can lightly grab it with your tweezers, move the motor into the point where that wire is the exact right length. And then all you have to do with the tweezers is pull the motor wire down to be flat on the pad. That's always worked best for me. Ramdago says, IPA 170 in a spray tin helps wash your work. Very true. Alcohol gets the flux off. If I was worried about this thing lasting forever, so in the flux, I don't know if it does anymore, but the old flux had acid in it. I think the new flux does have acid in it. If I was building this to live for 10, 15 years, I would, when I was done with all this, I would take a toothbrush and this little guy, and it's got a little pump built in, and it'll just pump the alcohol all over your hands. And I would pick up a little bit on the toothbrush and then rub all of that flux off of there. Sometimes I'll do that because the flux is kind of yellow. And so if I'm going to take pictures of a rig, I will do this to get it looking better. But usually I don't, because if I get 6 months out of this, I consider myself very lucky. Like, I'm not, none of these builds are going to last forever. 10 years from now, we're not going to be using motors that are anything like these. We're going to be, they're going to be way higher performance, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But technically speaking, yes, if you want to follow every single, yeah, if you want to do it perfectly, once you're done all the soldering, toothbrush, IPA, alcohol, scrub it down, get all that flux off. It'll look a little bit better, and it'll get the acid off. Star Stripes Jacket says A+ solder job. Thank you, dude. YouTube just did the thing. Scrolling back up. County FPV says I'm new to soldering and have a tip that won't take solder except on one spot, and that spot is goldish in color. Is that tip no good or fixable? Clean the shit out of the tip. Get it. Crank the heat up. Get the cleaner that you want. There's two ways to clean the tip of the soldering iron. I prefer this. You can get these for like $3 on Amazon. But you can also try soldering sponges. This is sort of a more old school way of doing it. It's just a sponge, and then you get it wet, not too wet, but pretty wet. For that tip, use this and then get a sponge and try both. With the sponge, you want it to smoke. You're gonna like pull it like that across it, and then twist it and pull it across it and twist it and pull it across it, to try to bring that tip back to life. But I really prefer this. So yeah, for that tip, try. The tips do just die though. If they can get to a point where they're too oxidized and they're just shot, they're pretty cheap. So maybe just say to hell with it and replace the tip. But yeah, you can try to just clean the living hell out of it. When I tell you guys to not clean the tip before you put it back into the solder stand, that is so that you leave a layer of solder on the tip, and that protects the tip when you turn it off and let it sit. So best practices are to finish working, put the soldering iron into the stand, leave it. If you turn it off, that's fine. Every time you take it out of the stand, though, put it right into the cleaner and then bring it to your work. That's the cycle that you want. You want work to stand to cleaner, cleaner to work. That's the triangle. You don't want to go from the work to the cleaner to the stand. There's no reason to do that. It's harder on the tip than it needs to be. Martin Tanley says, is there any go-to protocols for preserving Whoop batteries and motors? Pretty much the same as the rest of FPV. There's nothing unique about Whoops. Don't over discharge the batteries. Don't charge them too quickly. And then motors, don't crash, but crash. It's worth it. Yeah, the crashes are what kill motors. So that's kind of it. BLD says half the carbon is missing on the ends. Yeah, I crash a lot, but you should too. It's fun. Kevin Sumner says, I ran MR30 for a while, switched to ARM LEDs about a year ago or so. I'd run MR30 if racing because it's faster between heats. Yeah, there are certain situations where MR30s are amazing. Timon says, could there be much of a performance difference with the higher power 75mm rotors by direct soldering them could work better with a higher amp draw? So we talked about that last week or so. Somebody had messaged me on Facebook and said that with 1002 motors, you have to direct solder them. There's way too much loss with the plugs. So I am going to try that at some point here. I have done it before. I've done it twice. I've done direct soldered versus motor plugs. It was many years ago, and it was with smaller 65mm tiny whoops. So yeah, that is something that we're going to test maybe not next week, maybe the week after or the week after that. At some point that is going to get tested. I hope that that's not the case, but you never know. Ramdongo says, which type of Loctite for shaft to prop? Any thoughts? There are quite a few. Are you talking about, okay, shaft spinning on the prop, tried a little knurling. So if you're on tiny whoop motors, if you have the very common problem of the motor shaft letting go from the motor bell, replace the motor. But if while you're waiting for your replacement motors to come, it is Loctite. I have a bottle of it, but it's in the garage. There's a Patreon post about it. Let me find it real quick. Search posts. Loctite. Nope. Red. What if I search for slipping shaft? God damn it. Somebody has probably already typed it into the chat. There it is, Loctite 620. Thank you, BLD. Loctite 620. That doesn't sound familiar, though. 620? Hold on, let me just double check. $638. You're close. Loctite 638. It's specifically called retaining compound. Loctite 638. At some point, I will actually fix my video descriptions and I'll put it in there. But yeah, Loctite 638. That's what you want. Kevin Summer says, no clean flux doesn't eat the material. The regular stuff does. That's why no clean is important for electronics. Is this, am I using no clean? It doesn't say no clean on it. 37% lead. You're just going to tell me the lead content, not what else is in it? Is all this stuff no clean? All the stuff that we buy might be no clean. I'm not totally sure. But the long and short of it, in my opinion, is that this shit's all going to explode long before any acid in the solder eats it. And if it's not, crash more. Yo. Dirty Desert Drone says, I saw the Acrobeat ELRS was taken down off the site. That stinks. Have you heard anything about a new version coming out? I have not. But I wouldn't think they would pull it down before the new... I thought they would wait. I would think that they would wait. BLD says, so is 620. So 620 is also retaining compound. They're probably very similar. Northern Tier says 420 is better. All right, caught up on chat. Connor Schroep didn't tag me, but I just happened to see his comment. He says, just saw the title of the Wasp wagers any good. I was about to get some 2207 1860. I've heard from people that I trust, and the testing that Rosser has done shows that the Wasp majors are actually really good. The one thing I really wanted to do today that I almost forgot to do is weigh the damn things compared to my long-term favorite motor, which is the T-Motor F40 Pro 4, which they have very unkindly discontinued on me. So yeah, let's do that real quick here. Let me just make sure. I want to cut these wires down to the same length, but I don't want to cut them too short. Whatever. It looks like it's going to be a little bit too short, but I will do it for science. And I always buy, and you should too, never, ever, ever buy 4 motors. Always buy 5 motors. The 5th motor, you're basically buying an extra bell. The bell is what you will kill. So I don't have a problem cutting one of these stators too short because I'm pretty much never going to use this 5th stator. I'm only ever going to use this 5th motor bell. So let me just make sure these are lined up perfect so I get the exact same amount of motor wire on one versus the other. There we go. All right, cool. And let's just check it. Yep, that's the exact same amount. All right, cool. So let's see. I mean, we didn't really talk about the motor sizing, but the Wasp majors are 20, basically 22 and a half. It's actually 22.6, but 22 and a half by 6.5. I prefer 23. I've always run, not always, but I've settled on 2306 motors. So the Wasp majors are 22 and a half versus 23, so they're a little bit more narrow. But then instead of 6 millimeters tall, they're 6.5 millimeters tall. So a little bit less mechanical torque from them being not as wide, and they're also going to get a little bit hotter from them not being so wide. But then the extra 0.5 mil of height is going to probably make more power. Almost certainly is going to make more power. I don't necessarily want the extra power, but the more narrow bell pulls the heavy ass magnets in, so there's less moment of inertia. So they will potentially speed up, and speed down faster. T-Motor F40 Pro 4, my favorite motor of all time with short wires, 28.3 grams. Wasp major with short wires, damn it, 29.95. 30 grams right on the nose. Jesus, these are heavy. But 30 grams is my limit. Like I will only run motors that are less than 30 grams, which is nice because there aren't many, so it really limits my choices. Man, that is a lot heavier. I thought they would be lighter than that. The F40 Pro 4s are just really light, to be honest, is what's going on here. 28.3 versus 30. Damn. Oh well, they'll make more power, and you know, altogether, it's only adding 6 point something grams, 6-ish grams. Not the end of the world, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Weight on the ends of the arms has to move. Every single input that you give, pitch, roll, yaw, the weight on the ends of the arms has to move quite a bit. So even adding like a gram or a gram and a half or 2 grams to the ends of the arms, I can really feel the difference in the momentum. So yeah, in theory though, these motors will make enough extra power to offset that. The problem is they don't make any extra braking. So in terms of the motor that's breaking down, it's going to have the same effect, and then the other motor on the other side is going to have to work harder. So the heavier the ends of the arms are, the more the lighter the ends of the arms are, the more of like a barrel roll that you can basically get. Versus as the arm ends get heavier, the braking is not more effective, so they just have to make more thrust, and so instead of like a dead rotation, it's going to do this. And I don't like that. I don't like when the quads do that. The tiny whoops do that, and I have to really fly around it. My glide setups, like when you chop the throttle and you add roll, the damn thing does not shift at all. It just keeps going dead straight, and it's just amazing. When they start to do this, if you've got a gap lined up that you want to split S into, you have to set up over here. And then you have to like guess how much it's going to jump up over into the gap. Whereas nice light arm ends on a nice light quad, you can just drive right at the fucking thing and dump straight into it. It's not perfect, but it does it a lot less. There are a couple of dives in downtown Atlanta where they're really, really, really narrow. And even on my glides, I have to offset a little bit, and then it pushes up into it. I don't want it to be any worse than it already is. Kind of nitpicky, but when you've flown for over 8 years, you become nitpicky because you start to notice all these little subtle things. But yeah, weight on the ends of the arms is the bad. Connor Schroep says, have you thought about posting videos? I have thousands. He says, I love your content, but it can be so hard to find stuff sifting through live streams. Oh, okay. So as an example, Joshua has to pay its Blunty almost a full-time working wage to do what you're talking about. I can barely pay myself a part-time wage. So yeah, it's just not going to happen. Stavel actually was cool enough to grab a live stream and chop it up for me. But I haven't even been able to find the time to make the thumbnails and to organize it and write the descriptions and whatnot. Yeah, doing FPV full time is absolutely brutal. Unless like you've come from money or were one of like the original like 10 guys that hit it really early and got, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Yeah, doing what I'm doing here is more difficult than and time consuming than you could possibly imagine. And like exactly what I'm doing and I have been doing is like I'm just completely maxed. You know, you're looking at like 50 to 60 hours a week every single week. So yeah, unfortunately, like adding anything to this, it just doesn't exist. Like I already only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, and neglect things that I shouldn't neglect. But yeah, it is what it is. I hopefully this will continue to build and it can turn into something that's a little bit more comfortable. But what you're talking about there is 30 plus hours of week, 30 plus additional hours of work a week every week. Luckily though, Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper writes descriptions and time codes for all of these live streams, so it really isn't hard to find stuff in these live streams anymore. I will change your life here. If you go to anybody's channel like my own, YouTube has damn near hidden this little magnifying glass here. If you click on this magnifying glass, it will allow you to search just within that person's channel. So what's something very specific that we can look for? So if you were looking for feedback on 0702 36,000 kV motors, you can just search for that and it'll give you every single one of these videos. It will search the title, it will also search the description, so it'll give you all of the live streams where I've talked about them. And so you can then click through and it's inside of this stream, and then here in the what, look at me go, wow, 5,000 views, that's a lot. And then in here you've got all these individual descriptions. I mean, if you really want to speed it up, you can just do a quick Control F and search for 36,000 and it won't work. Why is it not 36? Oh, huh, maybe the find doesn't work. You might have to do a little bit of work. Oh, okay, it's because it's 36 dot. Apache Smoke did a dot instead of a comma. So yeah, that might trip you up. But 36.000, bang, there it goes. Lights it up for you. And then you'll also see it in Apache Smoke's comment here. He's got, so I have to chop his descriptions down a little bit because the description field is limited to 5,000 characters. So I go through and chop a bunch of it out here. But yeah, Apache Smoke has longer descriptions, which might help you out. But it's all there for you, brother. Thanks for hanging, my friends. My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Go to the website, click all the buttons. Sorry that I'm struggling so bad tonight. For everybody that stayed, thank you for hanging with me. It means an awful lot that you guys are willing to watch me when I'm in absolute fucking despair, because I know that it's hard, and I know that these live streams are not the best, but I figure that it's better for me to show up and give you guys something rather than to just say like, hey, I can't do it, and just wallow in my own self-pity all night. So thank you guys. I appreciate you bearing with me and sticking around. Yeah, like I said, it means a lot. So it is Mental Health May. If any of this looks familiar to you, yeah. I've got a text channel on the Discord called FPV Therapy with lots of good stuff. I've also got a Facebook group called FPV Therapy. These are not spots for you to post flying or any of that. These are spots for folks that have mental illness shit, or folks that have people in their lives with mental illness stuff, to learn about it, be able to recognize it, and react to it in a way that's actually going to help that person. Because, you know, things like saying to that person, hey, you've got a pretty great life, don't be so sad. That is the worst possible thing that you can say to someone. You think that you're helping, but you are the 10,000th person that has said that. And the first person that said it, it didn't help at all. We don't want to have mental illness. It's not fun for us. And so, and we know that we have a great life. And we know that we should not be feeling like this. And when you point that out, it makes it so much worse. So for the love of God, never, ever, ever, ever say that to somebody. It's just like, it's so much better for you to say nothing than to say that. Yeah, I mean, in most cases, it's kind of better to just say nothing. It's really difficult. There is not much that you can say. And I say this as someone who has dealt with it for my whole life. There's not much that I can figure out to say to someone else that's going through it that's going to help them at all, right? And I have a very specific, unique window into it, you know? So, like, for those of you that don't have it, to try to figure out something to say that's going to actually help, it's almost actually impossible. But showing up for that person and just, like, being there on the phone with them, in the room with them, send them a quick text, like anything, that's what helps. But never, ever, ever try to, like, cheer them up. It is almost always going to make the situation worse. Just be there. Just be in their life. Listen. Don't necessarily say anything. They're not looking for you to say anything. There's nothing that you can say that will help. It's anxiety and depression, like, they make you lonely in this really annoying way where, like, it's just like soul-crushing loneliness, but you don't want to be around anyone else. But if someone else comes to you, it's really, really nice. And, like, typically you won't tell them to go away. Sometimes you will. But, look out for your friends that have it. You have friends that are dealing with it that you have no idea. When people with mental illness kill themselves, so many people come out of the woodwork and say, oh my God, I had no idea. That is such a perfect example. We hide it because it sucks and because it makes us shitty to be around, and we don't want that, right? So, learn something about it. If you get any inkling that any of your people in your life have it, just be there for them. Just be present. That's kind of the best thing that you can possibly do. But there is a lot that you can learn about it that's out there. You just have to look it up. Healthy Gamer GG here on YouTube is an incredible resource. But FPV therapy, you'll learn a bunch. A bunch of us have put our stories out there, and you'll start to be able to kind of recognize it. And you can either lose these people in your life eventually, or you can show up for them. You probably want to show up for them. So it just takes a little bit of learning. But like I said, don't ever, ever, ever say, like, hey, just cheer up. Believe me, if I could, I would. Boy, would I love to be able to just cheer up. Then I wouldn't have depression now. So, love you guys. Be good. CiottiFPV.com. See you guys Sunday. I'm not ready. Here's the 30,000 kV rig. No. 30,000 kV rig. Have a good weekend, friends.